25 years ago. Nick, Ryan, the job guys are here, and we are joined on this special occasion, the 25th anniversary of the NWO. Up in the top corner, Mr. Eric Columbia. Down on the bottom, Mr. Ryan Ross. Guys, it's unbelievable. 25 years since Scott Hall came through the crowd, jumped in the ring, and declared war on WCW. May 27th, 1996, the beginning of the NWO. And here we are, guys. 25 years later, we're still talking about it. We're still talking about it like it just happened. These dudes are very polarizing, but if you're like all of us, they are the greatest faction of all time. And to me, it's not even close, guys. I'd even say they're the most important.
3MB is the greatest faction of all
They're
time.
second right behind. The most important of all time. Now, some people don't like them because they're jerks in real life and they put WCW out of business. Well, here we are, guys, still talking about them 25 years later. People still wear the shirts everywhere you go. I want this to be a free-flowing conversation here for like an hour. Well, let's start right here. Why? Eric, we'll start with you up top next to me. Why are we still talking about these guys 25 years later?
I think it's rather simple. You're still talking about the NWO because the NWO is for life.
Oh,
and I took that like the dude in the gym. It's still real to me, damn it. And I'll always remember the NWO.
Ryan.
Yeah, I think the reason why it stands out, the biggest reason for me is actually two. Number one, it was just great. It was original. It was captivating. Every week you wanted to know what these guys were going to do. Edge of your seat kind of deal. Like, you just don't get that feeling today. And that's the other reason, because today's product sucks. And you don't have anything else to do but go back and watch old footage of NWO and stuff that really sticks with you. And then
yeah, I think that's a great point. Yeah, and that's why all these nostalgia podcasts are the biggest thing. Conrad is making another $1 billion because he's getting all this nostalgia going. Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point, Ryan. Nick, what do you think, man?
Well, Ryan, first thing, I'm going to correct you. They didn't go out of business. They were bought. The NWO did not, and that's a terrible thing. People keep saying they were pulling
dollar, but
it is. They were pulling better ratings than a certain club is when they went out of business. So
all the clubs.
Yeah. So but yeah, it made wrestling. I feel like it was the jump to reality-based wrestling. The show wasn't just cheesy gimmicks, guys from different countries. It was a jump to reality wrestling. And the villains became cool. The bad guys, the bad guy that started, they became cool. That was, I think, the biggest impact it had for me is it made wrestling cool, which had not been cool for several years.
Yeah, no question about that. And that reality thing is something I'm going to hit on throughout the show. At one point, police were called because in Florida, they thought there was a riot at the Disney MGM studios at one point. People thought this was real. You didn't hate the guy because he was from Russia or hate the guy because he pushed Miss Elizabeth or something. You hated this guy because you thought they were taking over, and they were really pummeling people over and over again. And they were doing really bad things to people that we had never seen before. And we'll get into more of that later. But really, Hall comes out, then Nash, a couple of weeks later, or the next week, whatever it was, the third guy. We didn't know who the third guy was. Was it going to be
What do you
Sting?
mean? What do you mean?
You knew? 11-year-old Eric knew? Yeah, we didn't know.
I was just quoting Eric Bischoff there. When, Scott Hall's coming and he's like, we got something for it. What do you mean we? But no, me as an 11-year-old, I thought this was straight work. I saw Razor Ramon coming through the stands and I'm losing my ever-loving mind.
Yeah.
As soon as he came through and he still has that bad Cuban accent, Like I was bought hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah. Oh, I think
I wonder,
there were 40-year-olds that were bought in. You know?
I wonder, and I wasn't watching at the time that it happened in real time, but I wonder how many people, like especially smart marks, and there were a lot fewer of them back then because the internet was in its infancy and all that. But I wonder how many thought that the third man was going to be Shawn Michaels, just because you start off with Scott Hall, Razor Ramon, then you get Diesel. Like, seems like logical that's the next guy. I mean, I think a lot of people didn't realize there was lawsuits going on behind the scenes and all that stuff. But
well, and the curtain call happened, and people knew about that a little bit too. But I didn't know. So my story here is, and I'll make it short because I've told it other times on the podcast, but I was still watching, but not very much at all. After WrestleMania 12, kind of stopped watching. I'm 16 years old. I just got my driver's license. I got a girlfriend. It's summertime. I'm doing other things. I didn't have cable either, but I did catch some Saturday morning WCW here and there. I knew about Hall and Nash. I was on vacation the day of Bash at the Beach. We were in the hotel room. They had the pre-show on. And I'm like, oh, my gosh, the third guy. I personally thought it was going to be Bret Hart because he hadn't been on for a while. I knew he wasn't under contract, all that kind of stuff. Because the Detroit News used to have a Friday wrestling column every Friday. So my dad would bring that home from work on Saturday, and I would get to read that. So I knew a little bit of inside stuff. Well, then the summer hits, and I completely forget about it. I just don't even care about it anymore until about end of August, early September. I heard it was Hogan, and I just lost my mind. I couldn't believe it was Hulk Hogan who had turned, that had joined Hall and Nash, who were out there power bombing Bischoff and all this stuff. So I didn't have cable. Still, I'm like, Monday nights, I got to get to somebody's house. I got to see this. And then hooked till this day, 25 years later, I'm still watching nonstop because I heard Hulk Hogan turned. And then I couldn't believe that I missed the first couple of months. How about you guys? Ryan, start with you. You said you weren't watching either. And I kind of was, but you were out, right?
I was completely out. So quick fandom history lesson here. I started watching wrestling mid-'80s, probably even maybe closer to the early '80s. Caught a lot of NWA stuff, whatever was syndicated here at home. I didn't have cable either. I lived out in the country. Caught on to the WWF right about the rock and wrestling period, Hogan, Piper, Orndorff, all that stuff. Watched religiously every Saturday and Sunday, Superstars on Saturday, Wrestling Challenge on Sunday. Stayed with it all the way through probably WrestleMania 6, 7, somewhere in there. Then I started kind of dipping in and out. I was a teenager. I had other interests, always a big sports guy. By the time 1992, 93, probably my senior year in high school, I was done. I mean, I was like, okay, this Duke the Dumpster Drosy stuff and whatever, T.L. Hopper, the Goon, Abe Knuckleball Schwartz, I've had enough. I'm out. But I had a friend of mine who I used to play pool with, and he was a real casual fan too. And he's like, hey, do you ever watch, WCW Monday Nitro, man, wrestling? And I'm like, oh, God, I haven't watched that in years. He's like, oh, you got to check it out, man. Hulk Hogan's a bad guy now. And him and his buddies are taking over the company and all this other stuff. And I'm like, all right, I might have to check it out one of these nights. So the first time I finally had cable, I think I didn't get it till that year. I turned it on, and I think it was in January of that year. And Macho Man Randy Savage, who was my favorite wrestler of all time growing up, is sitting in the ring talking about being blackballed, and he wants to talk to somebody with some stroke, and he ain't leaving until somebody comes out. He ends up beating up a bunch of jobbers and whatnot, and then Sting propels down the roof. And I'm like, whoa. The last time I saw Sting, he had bleach blonde, spiked hair. He had all kinds of different colors on his face. His trunks were like fluorescent green, and now he's looking like Brandon Lee out of The Crow, and he's all dark, and he's not talking. He's got a baseball bat, a trench coat. I'm like, this is some pretty cool stuff, and I was pretty much hooked from there.
Yeah, I remember that night distinctly, and he wouldn't leave the ring. I think they even went through a commercial break.
Yeah,
and we have now seen that gimmick a few times as well. Eric, you're a little bit younger than us. I think like 5 years younger than me. Mm-hmm. So like 35 or something like that. So you're what, 11 at this point? You were
36 now. 36 now. 11 years old.
Yeah.
When Scott Hall and Kevin Nash made the jump in 1996, and I'm still very much heavily in wrestling. Like I come from a wrestling fan family. My dad loves wrestling. Watched wrestling from all the way back. He used to tell stories about going to the Michigan State Fair back in the 70s when Hogan would come, and he'd like come out of his trailer and like chug like a thing of beer. And he had like my older brother there, and like they thought that was like the coolest thing. And I was born one day, I believe, before the war to settle the score. And like my dad tells a story of like me and him, like as like a little baby in the hospital, like watching the war to settle the score.
I would compare it to a Springsteen concert.
And so like I've always just been like a Hulkamaniac. I think a month later or whatever, 2 months later is the first WrestleMania. WrestleMania 3, is when I'm 2 years old. And even though I don't remember that, like that's when I became a Hulkamaniac. So through the years, I'm always watching wrestling, always a Hulkamaniac, always watching everything Hulk Hogan. And when he goes to WCW, I switch over and I watch, though the stuff he was doing was terrible.
It's not hot!
And even as like a 9-year-old in 94, like I'm realized, this isn't very good. So I still have an eye on WWE, and I become a huge Diesel fan, a huge Razor Ramon fan. And but my dad, who's always been a Hogan guy and always loved the older wrestlers, when they moved over to WCW, we had a nice setup, which my mom like had a splitter, so she was able to have 2 VCRs hooked up, one recorded Raw, one recorded Nitro.
Wow.
But we always watched Nitro live as it was going on, and I would switch over like during commercials to Raw. But this one day, we see a dude in a Canadian tuxedo, which is just jeans, everything down, jean vest, jean jeans, coming through the audience. And I'm like, that's Razor Ramon, Dad. And he's like, oh, wow, that's cool. And, he comes through.
Hey, yo.
It changed my world, because I'm questioning everything. I already had gone through the stage where I've figured out wrestling is predetermined. But now I'm questioning like whether is that true? Like it flipped it on a 180, because they're doing things and they're calling people by their real name. Like I knew Hulk Hogan's name wasn't really Hulk Hogan, it was Terry, but they're calling Scott Hall and Kevin Nash by their real names, and it looks like they're really hurting people. And Hogan, when he flipped, I had cable, unlike you guys. But we weren't getting pay-per-views ever. Like my parents never bought pay-per-views. But I remember the night in Bass to the Beach when Hogan turned, whatever channel or whatever like news outlet, it might even have been ESPN that night, whatever I was watching, they covered the Hogan turn as if it was a real sports story.
Wow.
And it made national news everywhere. Like they showed stills of trash being thrown. I don't remember if they're allowed to play like a video thing, but I just remember, wow, like Hogan is a bad guy. What the hell is going on? So we just watched from then on out, and the Monday Night Wars was on, and I was on it from the get, and it's the best wrestling's ever been.
Best it's ever been. Nick, obviously, no one likes Hogan, as Eric just told us, especially kids. He lost everybody, Hulkamania was over in like 90, 91, obviously. Nick, you have a similar story to me. You were still watching, but not so much. And then you went all in.
Yes, sir. I was a huge fan I came in around 85, birth of Hulkamania. I was a little Hulkster, watched religiously up until about 92. 93, 94, I'm falling out, but I'm still watching. And then it became kind of uncool, and I kind of got my driver's license. Yeah, you're going out to high school parties. You can't be watching wrestling, because it wasn't cool.
No.
I mean, it was embarrassing to admit. So I really wasn't watching it. I knew SummerSlam. I knew Mania. I tuned in, and I luckily got to see, just flipping through the channels, I can see my dad weightlifting behind me. I'm sitting in my basement, and there comes Scott Hall through the crowd. I'll have Razor Ramon's here. Let me leave this on. He cuts the promo. He does the skit. Okay, cool. I thought nothing of it, man. I didn't see a war. I didn't see any of it. Like Razor Ramon's in WCW. Okay. I didn't follow anything. You know, I saw the PWI magazine every now and then. I wasn't following it though. Tuned off, and then I tuned in the Saturday before War Games on the Pro. They're doing a skit, and there's Hall and Nash spray painting. Looks like a portable, like type RV or something. And there's a third guy. God, that guy looks like Hogan. Yeah, but he's wearing black. That's Hogan. He's spray painting the side of something. And what the hell's going on here? And then it goes to commercial. I said, Dad, what? I think Hogan's a bad guy. My dad couldn't have cared less. He's like, okay, whatever. Yeah. I keep going. It comes back, and they start recapping the story. The hair on my arm starts standing up. I get on my phone. My buddy, I'll leave his full name out, lived down the road from me, Nick. I got on the phone immediately and said, Nick, you got to get over here right now. And he said, what? Thinking something was wrong in my family? Hulk Hogan's a bad guy. And he's like, well, you're lying to me, dude. I said, no, I am not. And I said, this is something I've never seen before. These guys are spray painting. We caught the story. I said, you got to come back over tomorrow night, man. We're getting War Games. And I begged my mom and dad, well, can we please get this? And we bought War Games. And then I saw the greatest build or promo, if you will, to a match I've ever seen before. And if you've never, I believe in my heart, War Games 96 is one of the greatest pay-per-views ever. Not in WCW, ever. In Mean Gene does this special report where they break down the story fairly quick. It is so awesome. We're sitting there mesmerized. And from that point on, I could not stop watching. I called him. I got my other buddy, Ed. These are guys, and we're in high school now. We're juniors. Seniors, I believe, 96 and 97. This is not super cool. So we thought. And then it turned out to be, and man, we could every Monday, these guys are at my house. We are talking about it daily in school. I start buying shirts, and by God, you start looking around the school, and there's other kids wearing shirts. All of a sudden, wrestling went from what Ryan said, Duke the Dumpster, MVP, not the guy you see today, right. This guy, the painted face of a baseball, to the coolest show on TV, man. It was unreal, and I couldn't stop watching. It was religious. I had to get every pay-per-view. My house was packed, and we can go on. My dorm room was packed.
Yeah, Nick, dorm room. That two things to what you said. Dorm room, it's hilarious. I went to college the next year. I'm a year younger than you. South Park is the biggest show on earth at this point. Not my room. The first week of college, in the great room on the big screen TV, there is no less than 50 kids in the great room watching South Park. Second week, maybe 10 or 15 kids. Third week, 50 kids led by me, watching Nitro and Raw, because like Eric, I had a splitter. I brought my TV down, set it on top of the big screen, and we are down there in the great room. Beat it, Cartman. We are watching freaking wrestling every Monday night for the rest of the year after that. And again, you know, you and I went to the same high school, and as you said earlier, that is how we met. We knew who each other were, but we weren't boys. Nitro comes to the Saginaw Civic Center, April 21st, 1997. That's the day Nash cut the promo on Piper and Flair about the potholes in the road, and you left these potholes, and we have to go through and pave them. Well, the next day at lunch, I'm leaving the bathroom. You're walking in the bathroom. You got a Hollywood Hogan shirt on that you bought the night before. I have my NWO shirt on that I bought the night before. You were there? Yeah. You were there? Yeah. You want to be best friends? Yup. Let's go do karate in the garage. And that is literally what happened. That is lit. And then And then I watched that next pay-per-view with you over at Calvin's house, Slamboree, and it was on ever since. And if it weren't for that, you and I would not be friends.
I'd have walked right past you, Ryan, and you'd have walked right past me.
Well, I would have tripped you, but yeah. And knocked your books out of your hand.
Man.
You stinking junior. I don't know.
Guys, exactly. The first 6 months especially stand out. Those were the best. That's some of the best wrestling TV of all time. And as you guys said, it was stuff we'd never seen before. It was groundbreaking stuff. It was real stuff. Like we know about the lawn dart. That's when people started calling the cops and everything else that happened that night. Me personally, a couple weeks later, that hotel room in September when they had the whole Nitro where the NWO was in a hotel room separately, that really stands out to me, just how brutal these guys were. They really made you think they were at war. They made it seem real. They had to buy their own commercial time with the preceding announcement has been paid for or whatever it was. They had to buy that stuff. Order. Remember, they had empty arena matches, and then they bought the time to put them on Saturday night. Then they fought their matches in order to, hey, if we win this, we don't have to buy time anymore. We get title matches. We get to, like, you thought it was real, man. Hogan destroyed his own friends. Brutus, on his birthday, he beats the crap out of him. The Nasty Boys beat the crap out of him. That stuff stands out to me more than anything else in wrestling, really. Is there anything specific like that to you guys that stands out? Ryan, we'll jump to you real quick. Well, anything that stands out like that to you that you'll just never forget?
I think the two things that stand out to me most, and you kind of iterated one of them, was the paid announcements. You know, they really drove home that they were outsiders, that they weren't a part of the WCW. They weren't a part of the company. They had to pay for their own advertising and their own propaganda pieces. And as it turned out, according to Bischoff, the main reason why they did that is because Hogan was so long-winded that it was an easy way to edit his promos. But I just thought it was so cool, so innovative. Even just this logo behind me is just, you know, I call it the license plate logo. To me, it's one of the coolest logos of any, like, whether it's wrestling, sports, or anything. It's so simple.
How many people have copied it again? RKO, Velveteen Dream had it. Other people have had they just changed the letters. I mean, all the time.
Yes, exactly. Copied everything from them, from the Bullet Club doing their Too Sweet, you know, all their gestures and really everything that they did. But the other thing that stood out to me was the way they made Sting, because Sting was a guy. I was watching quite a bit of Jim Crockett Promotions in the late 80s into WCW when Ted Turner bought it in 1990. And Sting was a guy that was sort of made by Ric Flair in a I think it was either a 30 or 60 minute draw on TV, and eventually won the world title from him. But he was a guy that never really clicked with me because I thought he was just way too Hogan-esque. He was very colorful, played up to the crowd. He was just a white meat babyface.
But a bland Hogan.
Right, exactly. From the time I turned 13, 14, I just wasn't into the good guys. I think I was ready for this sort of revolution that the NWO started. And so to see Sting that first time I turned it on in 1997, rappelling down from the ceiling and just looking all dark, and then going back and actually learning about the story and about how he wasn't trusted by his friends in WCW and how he basically declared himself a free agent and walked off, came back like 4 months later. I think that was the first time he came back, if I'm not mistaken, after leaving the night after Fall Brawl. So I think just the evolution of him and how big of a star he came, because I think one thing that really kind of bugs me about what people say, especially the smart marks about the NWO guys, is they never made any new stars. I don't think Sting was anywhere near the level of a star that he became doing that crow gimmick that he was prior to that. You look at guys like Diamond Dallas Page, who was doing ridiculous, like,
it's terrible,
just awful gimmicks with the gold chains and the bubble gum and all that stuff.
Luger?
Luger was never over to the level that you guys were I'm sure you were I know, Ryan, you were at the Palace when Luger beat Hogan. That place came unglued.
I'm the one that ripped up the Raw sign.
Yeah. Yes, you are.
I was going to get beat down.
And then obviously Goldberg, later on. So, and there's more.
There's more.
There's so many guys that benefited that weren't in the NWO that benefited from these guys, and guys that were in the NWO that
like guys like Conan, like they don't get enough credit.
Right.
Like Conan was never anything until he was in the NWO. I don't care
Buff Bagwell.
what kind of matches he has. Yeah,
Buff Bagwell.
American males. American males.
Scott Steiner.
No, I did like the American males. I'm not.
They could have been good, but that music was brutal.
That music was terrible. So yeah, that's. Those are the things that really stand out. The innovation. The things that we talked about earlier, just they're still copied today, and then the how many guys really truly elevated their game because of the NWO.
Nick, let's go to you. Anything specific that stands out above all the rest? There are so many, and if you don't know, we have our top 10 greatest NWO moments. That's also on the page. You can find that. I'll put a little link right up there. Boom, you can hit it. But outside of those, or one of those, Nick, what stands out to you, man?
The backstage stuff, for number one. The backstage. They took it to a whole new level, and you're seeing it still today. The stuff is shot back. This was not happening. The stuff shot outside the arena. The reality-based show of it, what you're seeing today. And the biggest one, Hulk Hogan's bad. I'm sorry. If you were not alive during Hulk Hogan's reign in WWE, it's like me commenting on Gorgeous George. I wasn't there. Maybe I should shut my mouth and listen to the people that were there that watched Gorgeous George.
Gorgeous George couldn't work, man. He was terrible.
Yeah, that's what people were talking about. Yeah, exactly. That's a great point.
He was only on top because Vince McMahon Sr. wanted him on top.
How many Hurricane Ranas did he ever land?
Yeah. 3. Hogan was bad. I'm sorry. That's NWO. That is what it was. Anybody else might have worked. Sting, Hart. Would have been cool.
Not to that level, though.
No.
Nope.
This was the guy in the backstage, and Hulk Hogan is a bad guy. That's it.
The baddest of the bad.
And he was like the one guy during that era that, granted, yes, he was a heel back in 1981 when we were all knee high to a grasshopper. Nobody. Exactly. But he was the one guy that was never flipped back and forth. Like Macho Man had been facing heel, Flair, obviously. You name the top star, they had been on both sides of the ledger. Hogan, you never even suspected, let alone saw him turn heel.
And he did it differently than other guys. He joined a gang. These guys were like thugs, at least the first 6, 8, 10 months. Nick, you mentioned talking about Gorgeous George, and I just want to jump back to something Bischoff and Conrad said this week on their podcast. And you and I do this all the time when talking about WrestleManias and whatnot. They're like, this is 25 years ago. Just again to reiterate, 25 years, we are still talking about it like it happened yesterday.
Sir.
And they're like, if you go from 1996 and go back 25 years, that takes you to 1971.
Yeah.
Do you even know who the WWF champion was? WWF champion was in 1971? Do you even know?
I'm just assuming it was Bruno Sammartino.
Right. I'm going to guess Bruno. But yeah.
Well, there you go. That tells you nobody sat there, and who in 96 was sitting around going, yeah, I remember at the Kobo when Bobo fought nobody, man. And here we are breaking down.
Part of that's technology, though. Part of that is technology.
Who's talking about 5 years ago?
Who's talking about 5 months ago?
Jabronis like us.
Who's talking about last Monday?
Well, there you go.
Wednesday.
Yesterday.
yeah, exactly.
Eric, for you being a youngster, and I loved your Hogan comments, because nowadays it's not cool to like Hogan. It's not cool to say you ever liked Hogan. And even then people are like, oh, Hogan wasn't doing anything. You are a dude that followed Hogan from WWF to WCW. So that's why they got him, for kids like you. I'd like to hear your take on what stood out to you as an 11-year-old and as a dude who really maybe thought it was real.
I assume that like it's how a lot of us feel about like Cena these days and when he was coming up, like where we just didn't get it, but you obviously see the kids who loved John Cena and from 2004 all the way to 2018, and they're so hardcore, but there's such a fan base that's like it's just not, it doesn't do it for me, because it wasn't for them. That was Hogan for me, especially when you go through the years of 92 to 95 into the later part of 96. He was doing the same old stick, right? He was doing the red and yellow, and waving the hand, brother, and vitamins and prayers and all this stuff, and it was falling flat. So I still very much identified with it because I was still young. But what got me was it was his turn, and it was just the subtle things, right? Like I always, and I don't know why this sticks in my head, but you have him in the ring at Bash of the Beach, and he's talking with Mean Gene like he has 1,000 times before in our lifetime. But just the subtle thing of Hogan raising Mean Gene's arm up. Like he touched Mean Gene, but in a way that he never had before. Just the subtle, the subtleness of you need to come up to my level because I'm not coming down to yours. It's little stuff like that was just like, man, this is different. It hits differently. And then you have the beard. I almost tried to do a blonde Fu Manchu on top of my beard for today's festivities, but it's the little things like that. I mean, you guys already mentioned the paid for. And obviously Hogan just being the ultimate badass that he was, but the little things is what got me. Even the Hendrix, the go away from what was his song in WCW? I'm a man.
Oh, terrible. Cody Rhodes thinks that's better than Real American, by the way.
That's so stupid. Going to the Hendrix tune, like it made him so. In a way, it made him cool. I don't know how. I'm not supposed to like Jimi Hendrix, especially as an 11-year-old, but I chop it down with the edge of my hand. I like that. That is always going to stick in my mind.
And the NWO belt as his air guitar.
Which is lame. I look back at it now, and it is so corny. But for me, it
worked then, though.
It worked for teenagers, too, man. It worked for us.
I'll tell you what they didn't want to hear, and Ryan, you've heard me yell this in arenas. Nobody knew who Hendrix was until Hogan came out to his. These people look back at me like, "What did this kid just say?" I'm like, "Jimmy, who? I don't know who this guy is." Hogan put him on them, and of course, we all know who Hendrix is. But it was great to play the heels with these guys, man.
And the cool factor, man. I mean, Nick and I talked about it a little bit, but so many things they did and they don't get the credit for that are still things to this day. Just the T-shirts. Who ever wore their own T-shirt until them? Nobody. Hogan did, but he ripped it or whatever. Nobody wore their own T-shirt. They all had ring gear or they had whatever, street clothes.
Robes,
how about what fans wore T-shirts out in public? It didn't happen. You bought them at the show. It was a wrestler's face on a T-shirt, and then that was it. NWO made it cool to wear it to school, to wear it out on the town. They made wrestling shirts cool.
They made everything wrestling cool.
They made garbage cool.
Garbage in the ring. How about the sing-along stuff? All the catchphrases. Yeah, people had catchphrases, but the crowd didn't chant along with them. You still see that today. The evil boss, which now is a detriment. They started the evil boss. The swerves, which again became a detriment. They started the swerves. every night. I mean, these guys are responsible for so much that has become staples in wrestling. You know, it's always a big talk, and it's come up again for some reason on the internet the last week or two. When did the Attitude Era begin? When did the Attitude Era begin? And I hear when Shawn pointed to his crotch, or when Tyson showed up, or when Austin stunned McMahon. No, the Attitude Era began May 27th, 1996, when Scott Hall came down. And then when Hogan joined, we were off. Everything changed. That's when it began. And I don't want to hear anything else. I mean, everything, these guys started it all.
The Kevin Nash era, but also the reality era. Sorry.
Yeah.
That too.
I was just going to, Kevin Nash was the reason why I was improperly identifying adjectives for like 15 years.
Yes.
Check the adjective. Yo, wrong one, buddy. That's not what it is. We're not here to play. Anything on that, guys? Just their legacy on just because we could sit here and we could break down every moment. We could sit here and go, and then the finger poke, and then Sting came down, and then Rodman joined, which is a huge deal, by the way.
And bringing in Rodman, which brought in Malone.
Who skipped practice during the NBA Finals to appear on a Monday Night Raw.
Yes.
Like that, or a Monday Night Nitro, excuse me. Like that is crazy. Like I don't care how big WWE was. They still had to get a Tyson at that point who was relevant, but he wasn't like 1987 Tyson.
Right.
Like this is 1996, 97 Tyson.
He was suspended crazy guy, Mike Tyson.
Right.
Yeah.
Fresh out
of they got Rodman at the height of Rodman.
Yes, absolutely. And people forget how big that was. But anything else, guys, on that and the legacy and just the things that they did that are still, that people don't even realize that these are staples in wrestling now. And they don't know, they don't think that it's tied back to Scott Hall saying, hey, yo.
Right. The execution of it was just like, it's one thing to have the idea, and you have to give Eric Bischoff a ton of credit. I don't care if he got the idea from New Japan or whatever. I mean,
we weren't watching that.
We weren't watching that. And it really wasn't a blatant ripoff. It was just the idea of a rival promotion intermingling or invading with another promotion. But that first night that Hall debuted, had they got that wrong and got off on the wrong foot, who knows where that could have went? You know, it could have been completely forgotten about by the time Bash at the Beach rolled around.
Right.
But it was executed just perfectly. And I'm sorry, but Tony Khan, if you need to pay attention, maybe watch that segment and write down some notes, because that's how you debut a talent from a rival promotion. You don't bring them in wearing a Mickey Mouse t-shirt, playing arcade Donkey Kong with Alex Wright. No, you bring them down. You
bogus.
Have a purpose.
Das Wunderkind.
You bring them in. You set the goal. You have a purpose, and you have a guy deliver. And that's exactly what Scott Hall did that night.
Here, you mentioned something, Ryan, that made me think of this. This is again how big they were. And there were some other angles there, but it was still WCW. And there was a lot of crap. There was a lot of Alex Wright. There was Glacier. There was matches with Roadblock against friggin' who knows
Ice Train.
Yeah, Ice Train, exactly. And they still made you watch Nitro instead. Even though the NWO, they might have been out there a couple of segments or whatnot, but it was not the full 2 hours. And they still got you to switch to the other channel for 83 straight weeks and then some after that because of really one group. That was it. So you got 20 minutes maybe of NWO and an hour and 40 minutes of freaking Roadblock and Viano 4. And Viano,
you had the cruiserweights too. Like they're a huge part.
They weren't tuning in for that.
I don't think people would have tuned in if they didn't see Hogan in them and then go, "Oh,
that's
they were awesome."
That's true. You're turning in for the NWO, but like
it gave you a reason to wait around for the NWO. Like, okay, these guys can go. I'll watch these guys. I don't care about them. I don't care who wins, but hey, they're fun to watch.
Like Jericho and his 1,004 holds was like that's not Roadblock. That's not Glacier. Like
no,
that was later. That was
right, but I mean like. Right, but I mean,
huge difference between Jericho in '97 and Jericho in '98. Like huge difference.
No, yeah, totally. But I just want to make the point that it wasn't all trash. Like we don't need to be that hyperbolic. But
it was in '96.
It was terrible.
'96 it was bad.
But I will say something that's a bit hyperbolic. Without the NWO, I don't think you have anything WCW now. They're not in the memory or the anybody's minds when it comes to wrestling. They're just a promotion that fades away because they're a promotion that their budget is too big. And I imagine if there's no NWO, there's no ratings.
They're the
back that up, and they just go away. They eventually get swallowed up, and people want them only for their Ric Flair video library. Without the NWO, a whole company is gone. I think that's pretty fair.
On top of that, Rick, for all the Flair and Horseman fans, they were there. They were there in '95.
Well, that was
96.
past. That was past Flair's prime.
But I mean, I get. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Granted. People need to realize he was not good at that point. He was not. The Horsemen were not good. It was not a.
He had a few good promos, but yeah, for the most part,
he wasn't good. He wasn't.
No, but it doesn't mean he didn't have the capability to be good because he went on to WWE and actually had some good years. But at Horseman, was awful.
I would say his WWE run's a failure too, but that
man,
that's me. I think that was a failure.
Evolution is a good faction.
Well, that's a whole other. I was talking about '92, his run in '92, but
okay.
That Royal Rumble was sweet, but
oh my gosh, it's awesome. But you thought you were getting Hogan Flair, and then once you didn't, it was all downhill. But
yes.
We're going off on a total different tangent for a different
You knew
day,
it would happen.
Which I would like to talk about sometime. But yeah, anything else, guys? Because I got a couple questions for you that I'm going to spring on you that you don't know about. Nick, you're familiar with these because we have done this on a different podcast. But I'm going to spring these on you, and you can bounce around the whole NWO throughout the years. Is that cool with you guys?
Oh, sure.
All right. We will start with Eric up top. What is the best line ever from the NWO? What's your favorite line that somebody said? And there are a million of them, so there are no wrong answers.
Yeah, so I won't go with Hey Yo, but I will go with in that same promo that he would go by the end, he get everybody to say, who'd you come to see? WCW? And boo, or the NWO. And then people would lose their minds.
One more for the good guy.
I loved it. Like anything Scott Hall did during that time, I ate it up.
Yeah, he was gold. I wasn't a Razor Ramon fan at all. I didn't like Razor Ramon. Scott Hall, I love Scott Hall. He is just one of my all-time favorites. Nick, I know you have every single one memorized. Dude, how do you narrow it down to one?
I won't. The whole Hogan lines, the whole Hogan promo at Bash at the Beach. I'll cut that out. Watch our other show for the greatest moments to hear more on that one. But right, it's the one I talk crap to people all the time. I promise, you know what? I'm going to take you out to eat. It's
down where?
All-you-can-eat restaurant. It's right down there. Right down where? Right down there.
Yeah. Which one? Again, Nick, talking about copycat, DX starts throwing that on T-shirts, and you got the Road Dogg out there who's not in the clique, who's not friends with these guys. Billy Gunn's not friends with these guys. They got down where, down here T-shirts. Scott Hall was saying that way before anybody.
That's got to be one of my. I think that would get mine. Other than the catchy, Too Sweet for Life, all that stuff. But I thought that one had me rolling, and that's one I still use on my friends today. Yeah, it's classic.
Yeah. Ryan.
I'll do a 1 and a 1A. My one is from the Hogan Bash at the Beach promo when he says, if it wasn't for Hulk Hogan, Eric Bischoff would still be selling meat from a truck in Minneapolis.
Yeah, it's great. Say that all the time.
Yep. And then my 1A was kind of, it's kind of goofy, but it's when Nash said, this show is about as interesting as Marge Schott reading an excerpt from Mein Kampf.
Mein Kampf,
because it just made my eyeballs like pop out. Like, did he just say that? Oh my God.
Yeah.
And if you don't know who Marge Schott is, young people, you need to Google it.
Yeah, and if you don't know what Mein Kampf is, it'll make sense.
You need to pay attention in school.
Yeah, when you put them all, dude, there are so many. We didn't talk about they would always take over the announce booth, and that was just comedy at its best, man. They're making fun of everybody. My gosh, I can't even think.
Ryan, I want you to tell your daddy.
That's the one
He's
still fired. Yeah, that was because when they fired Pee Wee Anderson, because I forget why, because he counted the Steiner brothers. I think they lost the tag belts at NWO Sold Out. They fire Pee Wee Anderson. He begs for his job back. He brings his kids out there, and he turns and he looks at the little girl, asks what her name is, and he goes, "Little girl, can you tell your dad that he's still fired?" And he's standing right there. And that was another one. They got calls to WCW. People thought it was real. People thought the guy really got fired.
And Ryan
Bischoff was the biggest dick.
Oh, he was great. But if I were to ask you, Ryan, how are you doing?
Better than you.
If you haven't watched that, the Steiners and the Outsiders have this. The Outsiders pull out, and it's a real like car chase that they filmed, and it is the coolest thing. But before it takes place, the Outsiders are pulling out of this maybe like a 7-Eleven, I don't know, gas station, and someone goes, "Hey, it's the Outsiders. How you guys doing?" Scott Hall leads out the window, goes, "Better than you."
Well, that leads into the next one, Nick. We'll start with you. Funniest NWO moment. There, again, a million of them.
I'll take care of horseman business.
You know, that one might be one. It's got to be Hall. I mean, just Hall is the guy. You know, I mean,
the
fun of the giant. I mean, Scott Hall down there. Scott Hall.
Is Andre really your dad, man?
I don't know if maybe he gets enough credit. Maybe he doesn't. That guy is brilliant. Too bad he's had demons. You know, what he could have been as a backstage talent, as a guy helping younger people. You listen to anybody, they talk about how this guy, you're in the car with him, you're going on a ride, shut up and listen to what this guy is saying. Because, I mean, whether it's, you know, getting the match together or pop, you know, get rid of the pills, you know, when we're crossing the border, Scott Hall always had something to say that was funny. I mean, I would say, anything, Scott Hall.
As a color commentator, that guy should be on color. They haven't had a good color commentator in I don't know how long. You put him in there.
He was supposedly behind the Sting angle, too. Like,
it was his idea. It was his idea. Yep. Yeah. Absolutely. And Sting says that. Mm-hmm. Eric, you got a funny moment? The funniest moment.
So I don't know if it's the funniest moment, but I think something where I'm going to like turn against the grain, because it's even borderline not even NWO like in their era. It's late. But what people always seem to hate, and like it like made a mockery of the business. Like, I think the finger poke of doom was genius. Like, and it actually got me. Like, I didn't see it coming. Like, maybe I'm just dumb, but like when it happened, I lost my mind. Like, I thought it was the funniest thing I've ever seen. And Hogan got the strap again. So, like, I loved it. So, like, for me, being the Hogan mark that I am, I love the finger poke of doom. And I actually don't get why it is so hated upon.
I don't either.
If DX did it, like
they did do it. They did do it. They did it in '97.
European Championship match between Michaels and Triple H.
Yeah, but that's okay though. that's okay.
Because they're funny, and they're young and whatnot.
The finger poke of doom is a revisionist history too. I do not remember the outrage at the moment it happened. Everybody that I was watching with went either were like, no way, or were like, yeah. The
outrage was over Shivani saying what he said about Foley. And now, because everybody hates Hogan, it has turned into, well, Hogan couldn't let Hogan had to have the belt. Hogan had to put himself over. Hogan
it's so stupid. Like the whole fact that like people like say like he never put anybody over. And if you go back to like his WWF days, like putting the Warrior over and things like that is something that he didn't have to do. You go to WCW. Did they botch the Sting match? Yes, but ultimately he went over in storyline. Piper, who's even more hard to work with than Hulk Hogan.
Right. Piper would lay down for nobody.
He beats Hogan clean, and then he puts Goldberg over as well, and he put Luger over.
Yokozuna, Billy Kidman.
Exactly. Undertaker.
Billy Kidman. Oh, my God, I forgot about that.
3 times Billy Kidman.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a joke.
Brock Lesnar.
It's a joke, and people think the cattle prod thing is dumb too. How is that dumb? The guy's invincible. How do you stop an invincible guy? Right. You zap him. What's the problem here?
The reason why it didn't work is because everybody got hurt afterwards. Bang. Otherwise, that would have been.
It would have been huge.
NWO would have been revitalized.
Yes.
Could have started from scratch.
It was nothing but stars. You make Goldberg run the gauntlet to get back to Hogan to get his belt back. It would have worked, but they all died or went to rehab. That's it. Anyway, Ryan, funniest thing.
He stole mine. I was going to say the finger poke of doom too.
Oh, that's all right. I got to say it, and I won't say much because we all know what it is. Dude, the freaking Four Horsemen sketch is the funny. I don't care what anybody says. It's hilarious.
Kevin Nash's Arn Anderson is great.
It's absolutely hilarious. It's groundbreaking.
Your spot, my spot.
Yeah, not a liver spot, not a dog. It's hilarious. It's, again, groundbreaking. We had never seen anybody do that. We have now seen it 1,008 times since. We don't need to go over the whole thing. The Horseman thing is hilarious. Oh, and it's true. Sorry, it's true. That's why it's funny.
Guys, the beer's on ice.
The funny thing was, how quick was it after that DX did the Nation of Domination spoof? It seemed like it was pretty.
It was the next summer. It was like
May. I thought it was closer in time. So
yeah, it was like May.
X-Pac was.
He's in both of them.
Yeah, he's in both. Yeah.
Which, by the way, that has been wiped from existence because we can't have blackface anymore. Yeah. So that has been wiped from existence. What, guys? Ryan, begin with you since you were short on the last one. Mm-hmm. What has aged the best from the NWO?
Wow, that's a good question.
That's a loaded one. Yeah,
that is a loaded question. Oh boy, I think I'm going to go back to what I was talking about earlier. The entire execution of that first 4 to 6 months of the creation of it. I think that's more hip, more cool than anything we've seen since then, and certainly better than anything we've seen today or in the last couple of years. And like you said, everything else on the show, or most of the rest of the show, was complete crap, but you'd sit through it just to wait to see what they were going to do, coming through the crowd, with baseball bats 2 on 15, but yet they're getting over on them. They're backing them down. All the stuff with the production truck, the stuff in the production truck that they did was really cool. We haven't talked about that yet. You mentioned the hotel thing. Just so many. That first 6 months was just amazing, and to me, that I hate to be like broad, but I'm not one that remembers specific things. So it's just that whole first.
Well, and the writing was good. Now, every week it seems like there's some storyline or multiple that make no sense or have holes in it that you can poke real quick. all of that made sense. Everything they did made sense. We talked about they had to buy their time. They had to do this, that, and the other. Well, how did they get in here? Well, they won this match to be able to go to this kind of thing. They had their own entrance at Halloween Havoc, stuff like that. Like there were checks and balances. It seemed like all hell broke loose like 8 months later, and nothing made sense. But at that point, yeah, it sure did. Nick, what aged the best?
Reality-based and real names. Randy Orton is not the show me state superstar. He's Randy Orton.
My beer.
Yeah, sorry. He's not.
He's not the arch man.
It's not that.
Of infamy.
He may have been. And if you look, the guys that don't work well. I mean, No Way Jose is not good. The Fiend is not good. These guys. It's really hard to be a gimmicky wrestler now. With some sort of gimmick, like you're a baseball player, you're a truck driver, you're a garbage man, whatever.
You're a bottle of orange juice.
Yeah. That doesn't work anymore. It just doesn't. And, the way they did everything, the backstage, the realness, the reality, I think that we've never went back. And you can't,
Not that
and
much.
You've seen that. Like, Rusev didn't. I actually don't mind Rusev. I think the guy can talk. I think he has
he's good.
Terribly on both shows.
Yep.
The Bulgarian. I'm not going to cheer against you because you're from Bulgaria. I don't really have a problem with the Bulgarians. It's not an issue for me.
Because he was from Russia 2 weeks ago.
It doesn't work. Even, you saw that when they brought out Middle Eastern guys after 9/11. It wasn't that they were cheered, but people were like, I'm not just going to.
It makes you uncomfortable. Yeah.
You can't, you're not just going to boo someone because they're from someplace or because they're.
I don't know. I booed the crap out of some Canadians in the late 90s.
That
this isn't college football. You're not going to boo them just because they're from Penn State.
Yeah. But I mean, people use John Cena. Some of these guys like the Miz isn't, but real names in reality, it's never left, man.
Yeah, I got you, Eric.
Yeah, so I think the easiest things is just the shirt, the logo, and the vignettes, the paid for. Because obviously there was like pre-tape stuff in the locker room, but it was usually like one camera promo base, and if there was a vignette, it wasn't necessarily a promo. It was just like advertising the guy and like his backstory. Here, the NWO was accomplishing both. They were doing a vignette, but it was a promo to advance the story, and that is something that I don't think you hadn't seen really before. And you haven't seen it done as well since. Like, occasionally you'll get it and you'll get a good one, but more often than not, it misses. But the paid for advertisements were almost always good, like 8, 9 times out of 10. And I think those combination 2 to 3 things are what aged the best for the NWO.
And they even used those to sell their merchandise as well, which we had never seen anything like that. Eric, we'll stay right there with you.
Yeah.
What has aged the worst coming out of the NWO?
Yeah, so this is an easy answer. It's just like the bastardization of the NWO, like the too many members, the subsects of the NWO, and not just the NWO and like the NWO Wolfpack, but them letting people do the Latino World Order and like all that kind of stuff. It just fully diluted the product.
OWN, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You said me.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. The dilution of the product. And the revisionist of Hogan. I mean, this idea that this guy is not. He's the greatest ever. I'm sorry. He is the biggest ever. It's something like that has probably aged the worst. I think has gotten a bad rap, if you will. But yeah, the BWO, I'm with you, Eric. What a joke. The LWO, what are they doing, man? And it just, I agree. Those are great ones in the revisionist of Hogan.
Yeah. Ryan.
I think for me, it's probably the NWO split in '98, and more specifically Sting in the NWO with the red and black face paint. It just didn't work for me. After everything they did to put that story together, it just kind of pissed it all away with that. And it doesn't age well for me.
But they were boys because they came and helped him at WrestleMania 31, Ryan. I mean,
I'm not going to hear this.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
No, as somebody who was in the audience at 31, it was over. It was awesome. End of discussion.
Oh, yay, here's the end of discussion. That's the end of the discussion from you.
Hey, go wipe yourself.
I would say a couple of things. Just they kept rebooting it. And because they kept rebooting it, for some reason that didn't affect the Horsemen, who instead of the 4 Horsemen, it's the 44 Horsemen. Apparently no one cares that there was 1 million people in that. But with the NWO, they suddenly care because there was 8 different versions of it. And it ended with Jeff Jarrett as the leader, right. Because everybody got hurt and all that. He wasn't supposed to be the leader, but everybody got hurt, and that's the way it ended.
Jarrett and the Harris brothers.
And he's out there with the Harris brothers, yeah. So in the end, that's what people remember, and that sucks because they should be remembering
average your carpentry skills.
Summer of '96 through the summer of '98, probably, when it was just amazing, groundbreaking, never seen before, everything great about wrestling. It captivated everybody. It turned them into little kids again. And instead, everybody's thinking about Stevie Ray, Jeff Jarrett, Disco Inferno, that's what hasn't aged at all. Because nowadays, it's always what have you done for me lately? And it's always the hot thing online. And that's all anybody talks about. So they think it sucks. And it didn't. And it really didn't.
It's a shame that Scott Steiner had the back issues because it really kind of looked like he was going to be the guy that kind of took the NWO into the 21st century, so to speak, because he was really taking his game up to a new level. And then, he had the injury, and they had the great angle where you thought he was done. He was in a wheelchair. You and I talk about this all the time. Say a prayer for Scotty Steiner.
It was great. It was great.
Yes, it was.
Okay, guys, we will begin with Nick this time. What is the best match of the NWO era?
Savage DDP.
At Spring Stampede 97.
Yes, sir. The one that got DDP over. Savage. If you're talking worked, the biggest match was Sting Hogan, obviously, but I remember me and you at a bowling alley, very upset. After that one happened. All night, could not. But the best, it was a great feud. It got DDP even bigger than he was. I mean, and Randy Macho Man, he sits on my Mount Rushmore. He is 4 for me. I love him. So, it was, I don't know, that to me, the best overall. Great angle, great promos. And, for the workaholics, the match is freaking really good.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah. Ryan, the best match of the NWO era.
I like that one because I'm a big Savage Mark too. But I'll take a Hogan match. So as bad as the Hogan Sting match was, Hogan Goldberg delivered.
Yeah. In
the summer of '98, and you can argue it should have been on pay-per-view. That's fine. They were a television business. They were looking for ratings, and they were starting to lose the war. So they did what they did. I had goosebumps, man. When Bobby Heenan's, he's like, this place will go crazy if he gets him up, and he's got him up, and then he dropped him, and just like you could hear Heenan's like, thank you. It was such an amazing moment. And it wasn't at exactly the golden age of the NWO, but I think for that moment in time, that one stands out pretty high on my list. For two guys that aren't good workers, obviously. I mean, especially Goldberg, he was green. But to me, it didn't matter. It was about the build. It was about the fact that both guys were so over. Goldberg was such a huge phenomenon at that time, and Hogan just being a great heel. By that time, he's 2 years into it. He's savvy, knows exactly what he's doing and how to get guys over in that role. And it was just so well done.
Yeah, how many times have we heard Hogan's not a good worker, and then it's followed later in a different conversation by Hogan got the best match that guy's ever had out of him. We hear that constantly.
So the right answer was Macho Man DDP. If you're talking about just straight work rate, like that match is fantastic. I do agree that Hogan Goldberg probably the biggest pop, but I'll go with like the best Hogan match out of that NWO run, because Hogan, in all intents and purpose, is the NWO. Hogan Piper told a really good story. I was in it. I was really pissed that Hogan did the job there, even though he's doing Piper a favor there. So I'll go with Hogan Piper, because Starrcade '96 was so important in keeping that run going. But also too, we've talked a little bit about Starrcade '97, right, with Sting and Hogan. And that match, I was actually in Florida visiting my grandma, and my grandma had one of those illegal cable boxes where you could get every single channel.
Yeah.
So I was able to watch Starrcade '97, the pay-per-view, as it was going. And if you want to talk about a 12-year-old who was so angry, dropping an F-bomb, and his parents didn't care, like when Hogan got screwed out of the win, I was so incensed. I can't believe that's how they chose to book it, now knowing what I know. But back then, I honestly thought Hogan got screwed, and I was like, this is insane. This is stupid. That's why that match, I can't put it up there. Even though the build was awesome, Starrcade I loved, but like that ending was so mind-boggling. It ruins it for me.
Nick and I, he mentioned we were bowling, and like every 15 or 20 minutes, somebody would go, dude, Hogan won. Like, what happened? And we were Hogan fans, but we're like, oh, what happened? That should be the winner, hands down. That should be, like, without question. There is just nothing. That should be like the greatest match in wrestling. That was their WrestleMania 3, and they absolutely blew it. And this is why all these people are, Hogan never jobbed anybody, and Hogan never lost. And well, if he lost all the time, when guys like DDP beat the Macho Man, then it's a big deal. But if the Macho Man got his shoulders pinned all the time, as much as you want him to, well, then DDP just gets a win over Macho. Who cares? No, it made it a big deal because some guy beat the Macho Man. That's why these morons don't understand wrestling. They don't understand it. You can't lose all the time because then you're
That's
why
current WWE heels have so much trouble getting over.
Yes.
Kofi Kingston isn't pinning Hogan before the pay-per-view, as we saw last week.
And when Drew McIntyre was champion, how many times did he lose in 2020?
There we go.
5, 6 times.
And now they're using that as an angle right now. They're using that as an angle. Why do you keep getting chances? Because you've already lost 5 times.
And which is fine.
It's fine if you want to incorporate it in a story, especially if you're going to turn Drew McIntyre heel. Like, he starts to lose too much. He starts maybe throwing like a hissy fit. Maybe then starts cheating to win, helping other people to cheat. Like, I could see that as a slow turn, but that's obviously not where they're going with it in this scenario. And like all heels can't be, pardon my French, chicken shit heels. Like, they can't all be that way. Like, some people just have to be like, I'm going to beat you up, or my gang is going to beat you up, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Guys, if you could nitpick something, we all love the NWO, and outside of the obvious, I wish it would have not ended with Jeff Jarrett. That's not a nitpick. No, that should be the way it was. If you had to nitpick something, man, I wish it could have been like this. This could have been a little different. Again, outside of Jeff Jarrett ending it and Nick Patrick not doing the fast count, what would you like to see maybe a little different? Go ahead, Eric.
Can I start?
Yeah.
Because I don't want people to steal this from me. Because I think somebody is going to. I love the Outsiders, but the fact that they wore like red and black so many times before there even was like the Wolfpack, like they would break out the red and black gear a lot as the Outsiders, irked the hell out of me. Like your colors were black, white and black, and I hated that they broke out that red gear before there even was the Wolfpack.
Yeah, the Outsiders that said Outsiders straight across. Yeah, was in red. Yep. And they did have white ones too, but they had red ones as well. All right. So that lessened the impact of the Wolfpack for you. Ryan, what do you got? You got something that you would little tweak?
Yeah, I wouldn't have ever put Savage in the NWO. I know he fit from the narrative of he was a big player in WWE, and so it was a natural fit. But to me, with his, sort of like off the cuff, like kind of crazy, unpredictable attitude, he was so over as a face. He was so good as a face at this point in his career. I think he could have been much more effective. And of course, the natural rivalry with Hogan, they didn't get along at that time anyways. So I think it just would have been a lot better storytelling had he been on the other side. Maybe he didn't even have to be like the flag bearer for WCW. Maybe he's the lone wolf free agent guy that just wants to get revenge on Hogan and the NWO. I think that could have been a lot more effective. He just didn't seem like he was a natural fit in the group. Like,
no,
he wasn't as great as Savage was. His allure wasn't because he was cool. He was intense and crazy and unpredictable. And to me, he couldn't be that in the NWO when he was at best the fourth top guy in the group. So this
is really the birth of the internet changing bookings. There may have been something in like ECW or something like that, but the internet is really coming into age. That is the beginning of 1997. You mentioned earlier, Savage shows up, he's sitting in the ring. He leaves with Sting. Well, Sting was supposed to build an army. That was the storyline. He was going to have Savage. He was going to get DDP. He was going to build an army to take down the NWO. And it leaked. And this is like one of the three. Now, there was dirt sheets and whatever, but with the internet, it leaked huge. Everybody found out. They changed their mind. They put him in the NWO. Like a week later after he came down with Sting. And then that was just completely dropped. It was like completely dropped. So, yeah, that would have been nice to see Sting's army. Nick, got a nitpick, man?
This is coming from a guy who loves him. How much? Ryan, I got figures to go here. I got DVDs. Your Hall and your Nash. I don't know if you guys can see it.
There it is.
I got wrestling buddies. Where's the Young Bucks wrestling buddy? They ain't got one. I got pennants. I got Hogan. I got Rodman. I got a Hot Wheel, man. I got a freaking yo-yo. I got a yo-yo.
Look at all of this crap.
I love the NWO.
It's a hey yo-yo, isn't it?
Hey yo.
Yeah.
I love the yo-yo. I got all this stuff. They should have lost. It never end. Yeah. They just kind of, that's my biggest, there was never a conclusion to this story. That is my biggest regret of the whole thing. And I probably wouldn't have wanted them to lose at that point. But looking back, it just goes away.
Yeah.
But every time. And that is my biggest regret on this. The biggest thing that I don't like. They didn't have to fight for WCW contract. You lose, you have to become a WCW contractor. You're fired. Or even in the WWE, they just got hurt. And then they started adding all these freaking got Flair and all these guys. The end of
Booker T.
Yeah, that's it.
Michael.
The heel has to lose.
Yep.
At some point. They have to lose. That's the story. And that's what I don't, that to me will irk me to this day, that we just don't have a conclusion.
My biggest thing, I got two things. We never got Nash Hogan is huge. But the biggest thing is just kind of like the Macho Man thing. All the times they changed what they were doing, changed the storyline, changed the direction because they panicked. They panicked so many times. And maybe the biggest being all of Starrcade 97, where they panicked because Sting showed up and he wasn't tan and out of shape. They panicked because they got Bret Hart, so they had to change the booking. The rating when they spent an hour building the NWO Nitro set went down because they've got the Job Squad out there building the set, and they got Austin out on the other channel with Santa Claus. The numbers went down, so they completely scrapped the NWO Nitro. They had a set, they had a graphics package, they had everything, and all of a sudden they completely change. They just drop it. That's why Thunder was there. Thunder was supposed to be the WCW show, and they just went, forget it, we're out. And they did that so many times, and I would have liked to see where it would have went. And then again, you split the two, and we never saw Nash Hogan, and when we did, it was a year later, and Hogan's in red and yellow. Like, Who cares? What is the single best NWO moment? It may be obvious. Maybe you got something else. What is the best NWO moment of all time?
I mean, it's so hard to say because, like, part of me wants to be cute and, like, try to, like, go with something that maybe, like, a little against the grain, but I don't think I can. I mean, Bash at the Beach, I know is it's so monumental for the business, and it's the best turn of all time. It's an answer where you can't be cute. Hogan dropping the leg on his friends and turning against WCW it's amazing, and it's a reason why we talk about it every year when it comes around. You see the tweets every year, in the summertime when it's time for Bash at the Beach, and it's the formation of the New World Order, brother.
Yep. Happy NWO Day. Nick, we may be straight across the board with this. I don't know, though. What do you got? Or do you have anything else to add to what Eric said?
I would tell all the AEW Bullet Club Barks to put down their phones and stop being influencers or trying to be influencers if you want to hear what I got to say. I would tell them all the talk about how the club and how big and great they are, brother. Well, who made the club a monster, brother? Who knows more about factions and how to get lines over and gestures over? Who made the club a monster, brother? And I'll tell you this much. The NWO was selling out the world. Well, Mr. Tyson Smith was doing Pee-wee hockey in Canada, brother. The NWO was selling
out. Wow, you went real name there. Went real name there. Okay.
The NWO selling out the world. Well, Andrew William Hankinson was Festus feuding with Eugene on the other channel, brother. The NWO was selling out the world. Well, Chad Allegra was going to be coaching T-ball or something, brother. The Young Bucks were bumming bucks off people doing a backyard wrestling. All right.
Yeah, curtain jerk in their backyard. Yeah.
You better believe it. And if it wasn't for the NWO,
that jabroni brown blood.
I feel like we're in like some weird like alternate reality where this is 8 Mile and this is like his real name is Clarence. Like
that's what's coming out. It is, Eric, what you said, and I had to put that is the greatest moment. These little, you will never understand how great that Bash at the Beach moment is, man. And you go back and listen to it, line after freaking line. The one that grabs me too, what have I been telling you all these years?
Mm-hmm.
You think about that for a minute. What Heenan was saying for a decade plus.
I told you
this guy was an egomaniac. I told you it was all about him. That line, I know it's a little line, but that line is so awesome to me, man.
And that's why I didn't have a big issue with when he said, whose side is he on? Because that's what Heenan should always think about.
Yeah.
Hogan.
Yeah.
That's the biggest moment, Eric. You're 100% right. That's why I just had to throw it at the Bullet Club.
But is it as big as wearing Christian Dior Nike Jordan shoes? I mean, it's pretty close to the same.
Selling meat from a truck in Minneapolis.
Is there any situation you can't super kick your way out of?
Yeah. No kidding. Apparently not, actually. It might take 47 of them in the next minute and a half, but yeah, I guess
Come up
not.
with your own stuff. Stop stealing it.
Ryan, let's make it
Bash
3
at the
for
beach.
3.
Yes, Bash at the Beach is the one and only correct answer. I watched it. Knowing that we were doing this today, I watched it 3 times today. Hopefully none of my bosses are watching this podcast, but yeah, I did. And it's just every time I watch it, I get excited, and which is pretty telling because again, I hate to keep going back to today's product, but there's nothing on AEW. There's nothing on SmackDown. Well, Roman to an extent, but there's not much on SmackDown. There's absolutely nothing on Raw that gives me that, hyped up, like hairs on the arms, standing up feeling, like Hogan coming out. I mean, just everything was just done. The announcers, the way they sold it.
Yeah.
We talked about Heenan, talked about Dusty, just, go get him, Hulkster. You see Pee Wee Anderson, the referee, with his hands over his head.
Yes.
Like, what is happening? And then before Hogan just completely discards him. And then Eric talked about, lifting up the microphone from Gene and just manhandle him the way he's never done before, because they had such a long history together in WWF and even in AEW. I mean, their history goes way back. AWA, not AEW.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, it's the one and only correct answer. It was just a monumental moment.
Dude, they littered the ring with trash
everywhere.
Nash
was picking it out of his hair.
You may see here and there someone WrestleMania 3 or something fly by Andre's head and all this. Dude, you couldn't move. It was like a frat party in college in the front yard. It was just littered. The heat Hogan got, and the fact that it's Hogan. I told Nick on our other show, the top 10 greatest moments of all time. Go watch it. Click right there. That may have been the best performance of Shivani's career. I mean, the way Hulk Hogan, you can go to hell. This was planned back to 94. Everything. Shivani has never been better. He sold that just incredibly. The Hogan promo, for a guy who really didn't do anything but talk in the back to Mean Gene, and who knows how many takes they did, and kind of said the same thing a lot of times, but he had good promos. He went out there and nailed every single thing. Now, he may have called it the New World Organization, but guess what? We didn't know what it was called, so who cares? We didn't know that it was
took them like 3-4 weeks before they came up with the logo and the music and everything.
Yeah,
so,
they weren't even there the next night. So, he nailed it in all the lines, in saying, I'm the man, Johnny come latelys, bumming gas, putting the car to get to high school, selling meat out of a truck in Minneapolis. Every single thing. You fans can stick it, and it's true. It's true.
The opening
you need
was
to
shocking.
Shut up.
Yep.
If they want to hear what I got to say.
Shut up.
Shut up. You want to hear what I got to say.
And he did what Eric said, and I think that's good, and I've never heard anybody else talk about that. He grabs Mean Gene. He didn't just tap him there. He grabbed him and pulled his hand up. You better tell these people the force he used, the anger he used, and people are throwing stuff, and they're getting more and more mad. Scott Hall throws a crotch chop at people. Dude, it was just, it had to be knocked out of the park, and he didn't even just knock it out of the park. It's like that Babe Ruth home run that they talk about that flew at Tiger Stadium that was still going down the street. It's still going down the street. It is the best promo in the history of freaking wrestling. The greatest face of all time became the greatest heel of all time in about 5 minutes. Ryan, we will start with you this time. Who won the NWO? Who was the winner?
Mikey's the winner. No, I'm sorry.
Mikey wins.
Mikey wins. For all you swinger fans out there.
Who I'm supposed to be impressed because she's wearing a backpack.
Man, you guys are old.
Oh,
true story.
Yeah.
Anyway,
who won
the
NWO?
Well, I think the obvious answer is Hogan, so I'll leave that for somebody else. I think the winner isn't Hogan. It isn't Nash. It isn't Hall. It's Eric Bischoff, because it was his creation. And he did something that nobody ever thought could be done. He not only competed with Vince McMahon, who had 10 years earlier taken the business national, no one thought that could be done. And then once he, built this mogul and had WrestleMania as a brand and SummerSlam as a brand and Royal Rumble as a brand and so on and so forth, Eric Bischoff said, all right, I see your WrestleMania, I see your SummerSlam, I see your Royal Rumble, and I raise you a new world order. And I raise you, we're going to do things a little bit differently. We're going to tell real stories, believable stories, things where people are going to say, I know this is scripted and I know it's quote unquote fake, but that looked pretty real. Mm-hmm. Or that guy was on another show just yesterday. Like we didn't even talk about Rick Rude appearing on Nitro and Raw on the same night.
Same night.
1997.
Yeah.
Stuff like that, going on the air 3 minutes early, that's just Nitro in general. But to me, yeah, I think in the grand scheme of things, Eric Bischoff is the winner of the NWO.
WCW had never made a single dollar until after the NWO was created, and then they were in the red by like $50 million in '98. Eric, who won the NWO?
So I don't know if there is a single winner. Obviously, Eric Bischoff is a great answer. Us, the fans, is a great answer. Wrestling in general is a great answer because it took the business to heights it's never, ever been seen. And I don't know. People argue we're in a golden age of wrestling right now, even though the product isn't necessarily there. Revenue dollars and stuff are up. So it's a different argument. But like pop culturally, wrestling was so ingrained into everybody's brains. Like it was so out there and so on the forefront that you could argue wrestling, but I'm going to be cute here. And I'm going to say Kevin Nash and Scott Hall because they had that clause in their contract and wrestling and WCW got so big that they made so much money. So I'll say
favored nations clause. Yeah. Whenever anybody else got more money, they got a bump too. Yeah, no doubt. And hopefully I don't steal this one. Yeah, you could say Vince McMahon won because it made him, change his game. Hopefully that wasn't yours, Nick. And if it was, expand on it. Who won it?
You guys both took both of them, and I got one more. Yes. Wrestling fans, we're freaking sitting here doing a podcast on the NWO 25 years later. Their merchandise is still selling 25 years later. Vince McMahon, you said it, had to get better or his company would go under. That was his option. So you took those two. I'll say the one, Sting. There's one character that is still going today. There's one, and it ain't the California. We have never seen the California, to my knowledge, since the NWO. He's still coming out as the Crow. He took the Crow to TNA. He took the Crow to WWE. I don't think the majority of Sting fans know him as California Sting.
No.
He's the Crow Sting.
He's been the Crow Sting for 25 years.
Yep. Yeah. Surfer Sting is dead.
Yeah,
he's dead.
If you see that on the WWE network and you're like in your 20s, you're like, who's that? You don't even recognize that as Sting.
You wouldn't know who it was. That's a good point. I didn't think of that. Yeah, and think about this. This dude won without wrestling for 14 months. I'm going to go, the fans, because we are here. We didn't watch wrestling. This made us start watching again. we are still watching. Now you can thank DVRs probably for part of that, but we are still watching. I am friends literally with all three of you guys. Probably 98% of the reason why is because of wrestling. There's something about wrestling fans that you attach, and like it's like some kind of secret handshake, you know, that you know that nobody else knows. And the NWO did that for all of us because it was so, and it let our little secret that we didn't want anybody to know to watch wrestling. We didn't care. Like, there were times where I was wearing a wrestling shirt every day to school. I was Hulk Hogan my senior year for Halloween. I painted on a beard.
Me and you fake fought with a finger poke, dude, at a party in college, man.
We did the finger poke of doom, and I told him I wouldn't job too.
Yeah,
so I
Slocum Pipered me.
True story, I wouldn't job. But I was at senior year of high school. I go get the fake mustache painted on the beard, had my shirt. Dude, there's no way you could do that stuff a year earlier. You wouldn't be caught dead doing that. And here we are. We're still talking about it. We're still friends because of it. And then we found out other reasons why we like each other in sports and this and that and the other. The fans are the winner, man. And it gave us stuff we're going to remember for freaking ever. Or being at events. You and I going to an event together, and we're making fun of something or other, and some guy behind us gets mad. You and I were there together when the NWO 3-on-2 beat The Rock in Austin at the Joe Louis Arena. Never will forget that stuff. I went to WrestleMania 18. I went to Nitro 100. I am on the WWE Network ripping up the Monday Night Raw sign in the front row.
Peacock.
Yeah, Peacock. Maybe they edited that out too. I don't know.
Probably did.
But we don't want a lawsuit for some guy desecrating our logo. But that,
Ryan, I've
just
never
the memories, man.
I've never thought about going on the ice to save my Pittsburgh Penguins. I had to be stopped by one of my friends, and maybe I had too many sodas at the event. But Luger racked Hogan. Little Hortz was on his way to that ring had my buddy not saved me.
And you guys were in the upper deck, right?
Oh, yeah. I was being my buddy Nick. We were like, we got to go. And all I hear is this one hand grab me on the shoulder and goes, "You will get hurt bad."
We got to go help Hogan. Just unbelievable, man. So, yeah, there is no wrong answers there. Guys, this was awesome. We probably went way too long. But that's okay,
Couldn't go long enough, man.
We probably could go another 5 hours. You could go all day on this stuff, man. So glad you guys were here. Thanks for taking time out of your day. If you haven't, check out our other stuff. 10 greatest NWO moments of all time. A countdown. We will put up later this week the 10 worst NWO members. Look for those the rest of the week. Leave your comments. Subscribe. Do all that stuff. Boys, thank you. This is awesome. There you go. For life, brother. See ya.
Pleasure's all yours, Bucky boys.
Is Andre really your dad, man?